Yes, well, that's good enough. You know, 2 heads, 3 heads are better than 1.
Today I'm going to talk about how the role of canine officers, canine dogs, are in law enforcement. So I'm just going to show you this picture. I've seen police officers train the dogs while I'm working, so I'm kind of always there trying to learn something about the dogs. Today I want to talk about the history of the canine dogs and how they were first used. I'll also like to talk about how to train their dogs physically and mentally, and I'll also talk about different how the dogs are used in different ways, such as military, or such as they're using military for bomb squad, bomb dogs, or drug dogs, or whatever. The first thing I would like to say was to talk about the history. Dogs were they were first domesticated in the early days of mankind. They were used for different wars, such as the Indian War. They were used bloodhounds to control pretty much the Indians who would escape, or they would hide in the swamps. So these dogs were pretty much find them. These dogs were used tool of war and means of controlling, intimidating, and submitting humans. The U.S. Army initiated one of the first organized canines in the Seminole Indian War, since they were using bloodhounds to search for Indians during the Indian War. During World War II, they were using them for the concentration camps, and the dogs were also sent during Vietnam. They were sent to tunnels and caves to sniff landmine or bobby traps and stuff like that. Dogs were initially used for hunting, hauling, and guarding the camps and settlements. At some point, they began to use for military purposes and for social control. Police started using dogs when they were using for riot control, to control the people. They will also use them because sometimes police officers had probable cause to stop a car, but they couldn't really search into people's vehicles, so they would use these dogs to sniff around the vehicle, and then they would have probable cause to go inside the vehicle and search for people who had anything illegal or whatever. Now let's talk about how the dogs are physically and mentally trained. Dogs are normally, they go through many tests. They go through a lot of obstacle course, they search in buildings, such as in the outside field. They would also, pretty much they would hide different things for these dogs, and the dogs were, they were trying to train them first, trying to sniff the things, trying to sniff clothes, or trying to sniff narcotics or whatever, and then they would hide these narcotics, or if they were tracking dogs, they would hide clothes, and they were putting them in a field, and the dogs would pretty much do their searches. The dogs are trained for strength, endurance, speed, attacking. They normally attack when they attack a person. They normally attack by hand because they do have these suits. They're black suits, and normally when the dog attacks, they normally make the dog attack the hand. So if anybody has seen anybody being attacked, normally they will attack the hand and stuff. But normally if their owner, their police officer, is being attacked, they will go for anything. In one of the canine cop magazines I read, there was a dog. He was trying to help his partner. He was trying to catch a fleeing person, and he was stabbed by the suspect. And you have to help the dog deal with stress, and you have to help them deal with these kind of scenarios. So these dogs normally deal with a lot of stress sometimes from the time From the time the dog is a few weeks old, there's a series of tests they have to go through, and which can indicate whether the dog has the ability to be a canine dog. And normally, these dogs have to be living with their officer, and normally, if you have kids or whatever, and you're a canine handler, you pretty much cannot try to keep the dog away from your kids because it causes a lot of stress, and if you don't rest your dog well or feed him well or keep his health in good shape, the dog is not going to work as you want him to work. Another thing, now let's talk about the different roles for canines. According to the Global Training Academy in San Antonio, they do train police dogs, and there's so many there's so many different types of dogs, such as the patrol dogs, which are trained in protection, attacking their handler. These dogs also train in, they have special languages, such as normally these dogs are shepherds, so German shepherds, so they would teach them in their German language to obey commands or whatnot. They're also drug dogs. These dogs are trained to smell the marijuana, cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine, or any kinds of drugs. They would normally hide these drugs, and these dogs would pretty much find them. We also have bomb dogs. These are trained to detect smokeless powder, fuse, TNT, and dynamite, etc. And that's pretty much it. I'd like to show you a video, and this is a video of a canine, either Anaheim PD canine officers, and normally this was an open field. Suspect was, it's not a suspect, so one of the demonstrators was hiding, and the dog pretty much found him. So you'll see the video.
So Brian, what did you think?
It was good. We had a good preview of the history and how to train dogs methods of training dogs and roles of dogs, like patrol dogs, guard dogs, and military dogs, passive dogs. Didn't use pictures too much. The video at the end though, it did went overboard though, over the time, I think. And she turned on the lights, which was pretty good. I can see the video.
Yeah, you know, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I'm keep bouncing back and forth on this one thing on the video. The video goes on for a long time, so that's a little bit problematic. There's no narration while it's going on, so it just feels like dead time. It is something interesting to look at. On the other hand, you did plan it. You've got it set up to use effectively. You turned off the lights so we could see it, so I appreciate that. I just think it needed to be integrated into the speech a little bit more effectively. The opening section, we know what the topic is. You've got a very clear preview, although you kind of stumble through it. It's clear where you're going to go during the speech. The first point is signposted well. I didn't think that you were as consistent about the signposting on the following points. And I think you needed to have a little bit more explanation on some of those points. So I got some random information, and it felt like I was getting an historical review at one point. I thought, okay, well, that'll be interesting, but that doesn't really turn out to be mostly what you're talking about because you just kind of skip through those points. And then you get to the next point on the training process, for instance, and again, I think I got a little bit of skimpy information on each of those points. To me, any one of the 3 points that you're talking about here could have been the speech. And, you know, you cut out the other 2 things. You know, let's talk about the history of utilizing dogs in military or paramilitary situations. Let's talk about the training process that's going to be used. By the way, I think that's where that video clip would have fit in better in the speech in that middle section. Or let's talk about how the dogs have to be handled outside of that context, how they have to be tested and dealt with and managed outside of the training kind of thing. Any one of those could have been a speech, and you could have developed it a little bit more. As it was, I thought it was a little sketchy internally. A couple of issues about, but like I said, there is a topical pattern here, so there is some structure that's going on. The information is not always cited consistently. The first citation I got was, you know, probably on the second point. And I got a vague citation on that. One of the magazines I read, I think, would be something a little bit better than that. Then you did have a citation on the third point that was a little bit clearer. Just an example of a couple of things that got underdeveloped. You mentioned, for instance, on that last section that the dogs are trained and, you know, they're German Shepherds. So you say, it sounds like they're trained because they're German Shepherds. They're taught in German, you know, because that's their language. And I've heard material on this before. Most of them are imported from Germany. That's where they are bred and raised for that purpose, and so the training is done by German trainers, and that's why they use the German commands for them. Not because they're German Shepherds and they wouldn't understand if you spoke to them in French. Only poodles would understand you then. You know, that would not make any sense. So I think, like, there's good information here, but it sometimes feels like it's incomplete, like there's not enough explanation, and that might be because you're trying to cover too much. All right, and I've always wondered what happened to K1 through 8. Nobody has ever explained that.